Hello and welcome to Island Pulse, a vibrant platform dedicated to fostering community engagement and promoting health and wellness within the Cape Verdean diaspora. As the official podcast of the Cabo Verdean American Medical Society, also known as CVAMS, we bridge the gap between healthcare professionals and the community by addressing pertinent medical and cultural topics. So today, I'd like to welcome you, Benvindo, to our special roundtable episode titled Leaders of Tomorrow. I am your host, Dr. Maritza Barros, and today we're celebrating the cultural pride and resilience of the Cape Verdean diaspora with three incredible guests. Our energy is high and our hearts are full of marabaza, y'all. That's right, that famous Cape Verdean warmth and hospitality. So before we dive in, let's meet our guests in this quick roll call. All right, so first we have Elisa Cabral. Welcome, Elisa. Elisa is a community organizer and youth advocate whose passion has always been working with young people. She currently spends most of her time as a doctoral candidate in school psychology. She graduated from Tufts University with a degree in child study and human development and even wrote her honors thesis on Cape Verdean youth identity. Inspired by the resilience of immigrant teens in Greater Boston, Eliza has worked as a teacher, a youth mentor, and a community organizer. She also channels her heritage through arts and visual arts. Through the arts as a visual artist, singer, and even a practitioner of the Afro Brazilian martial arts capoeira. So please, y'all, help me in welcoming Eliza. Eliza, say hello. Offer us a quick cultural greeting if you can. Say something to us in Criollo. Let us hear that if you can, if you'd like. And tell us where you're talking to us from today.
Hello, hello. I'm really excited to be here. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. That was excellent. That might be the best introduction I've ever had. Um, I am talking to you from Massachusetts. I'm originally from Praia, Cape Verde. I grew up in Brockton, so I also call that my home.
Mhm.
And I would say one word that I would find empowering in our language, I would say I think kind of obvious, poderosa. So
Wonderful.
that concept of just having an inner power and inner ability to make things move. I think um, just having that concept, despite all of any barriers or challenges that I may have specifically as a woman, Cape Verdean, I think that definitely sticks with me, and I carry it in everything that I do. So thanks so much.
Love it. Thank you so much. And I can't wait for folks to hear more about how you embody being a poderosa, right? And I'm here in a room filled of poderosa. So let's meet the next poderosa. Taylor Montero, welcome. Taylor is a proud first generation Cape Verdean American and Cambodian American who grew up in New Bedford, Massachusetts. She was the first in her family to graduate from college, earning her business degree at Suffolk University, where she even served as the class of 2022 commencement speaker, y'all. Today, Taylor is launching her career in Boston's finance industry and is passionate about mentoring others, truly exemplifying the ambition and resilience of her community. Y'all, please help me welcome Taylor. Taylor, give us that cultural shout out. Tell us where you're calling in from today, where you're zooming in from today.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I have to second, I think that's the best introduction I've ever got as well.
Y'all are
Um,
amazing.
well, hello everyone. I'm very excited to be on this podcast today. My name's Taylor, and I am zooming in from Boston. I was born and raised in New Bedford, Massachusetts. Some of you may know, or some of you may not know, but New Bedford has a huge Cape Verdean population. So it means so much to me to be able to share,
Mm.
where I'm from, even though, I'm still in Massachusetts, but New Bedford definitely holds a special place in my heart. One Creole word that empowers me is, to be honest, growing up with both the Cape Verdean and Cambodian background, I haven't used many of these words, but one I was able to look up was residue. And please let me know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it means
Mhm.
strong, resilient, and tough. I think being a Cape Verdean woman and just a woman in general, our people experience a lot of resilience, coming from different islands and different places and navigating, the workforce or college. And I think it really means a lot to me to be strong and resilient in everything I do. And that is a huge part of me.
I love that. Thank you for naming that. I'm going to put the call out to our audience, especially our viewers on YouTube. If you know that word, drop it. Because I'm not even going to try to act like I know which word you're referring to, Taylor. I feel like poderosa also means what you defined, but that's my limitations of being born in the US as well, right? Of not knowing some of those. More complex words, but I feel like somebody's gonna help us out in the drop. So yeah, drop that comment for us. Tell me the definition again, Taylor.
It means strong, resilient, and tough. I found about like 10 words, and that was one of them that stood
Yeah.
out to me. And I was like, I hope someone else knows this, but I guess not. Maybe someone in the chat will, but
And
um
try to say it for me again though, so I can see if any of us.
residue, residue.
Yeah, because it's so close to resilience. I'm gonna we're all tasked to finding out what
Yeah.
that word is. It might be more Portuguese than Creole, and we're gonna get confirmation on that as well. But
Okay,
thank
let's do it.
let's do it because we need more words to express that strength and that power that you're describing. Absolutely. So thanks again, Taylor. Thanks for being with us. And last but not least, y'all, please say hello and welcome Mayra Gomes Spencer. Mayra was born and raised in Praia, Cabo Verde, y'all, and came to the U.S. to pursue her education. She is a student at Bates. Oh no, she's an alum. Sorry, an alum of Bates College, and now works in healthcare at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. As a multilingual speaker of Cape Verdean Creole and English, Mayra is passionate about bridging cultures in medicine and giving back to our community. She truly embodies the Cape Verdean diaspora's resilience by forging a path in a new country while staying connected to her roots. Yes, Mayra, thank you so much for being with us. Welcome. Offer us your greetings or your favorite word or empowering word in Criollo and tell us where you're at right now.
Hi, thanks for having me. Thank you. I'm Myra. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm currently in Dorchester,
Yeah.
hometown for many, many, many Cape Verdeans. Um, I think one of my favorite like Cape Verdean word is, well, or like meaning is familia,
Mm.
because to me, family is what keeps me going. It's what keeps me grounded and it inspires me to keep pushing. I have a lot of cousins, a lot of like aunts, and my family's really big, but somehow I'm the one that they look out to translate letters, to bring them to certain places. So it's like it feels good to have that support system where people believe in you and believe in the work that you do. So I'm really happy to be here and I'm excited for this conversation. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness, thank you. Thanks to each and every one of you, right, for being here, for giving your time and allowing us to learn and be inspired through your stories and your leadership. The way you're leading now is this is leaders of tomorrow, but y'all are leading today, you know. And I love everything that each of you brought. Resilience, poderosa, and family is such a great representation of the strength of our culture, no matter where we are, where we go. Um, so now that our listeners have met you all, let's get into the heart of our conversation. right? Um, every leader has an origin story. There's some place that you started, right? Some influences that inspired you. And um, ours is particularly special, right? Coming from Cabo Verde. So in this segment, I want each of you to share a bit about where your journey began and how your upbringing shaped who you are today. Um, because we're gonna see, I think we'll see how our culture and heritage often plants those seeds of our leadership. I'm gonna start with Eliza. Eliza, you grew up immersed in the Cape Verdean community here in Massachusetts. Can you tell us about your early years and what ignited your passion for youth work and community organizing?
Yes, definitely, definitely. I think that growing up, in Brockton, I also had family in Dorchester. Dorchester is also home to a lot of Cape Verdeans. I think, you don't realize it when you're a kid, but certainly looking back, I can definitely see how being immersed in that, having I think having to traverse different cultures, like you're speaking and acting a certain way when you're at home. And then when you're in school, you have to speak and act in a different way because there's different expectations, American values and ways of communicating. I think it gives you a certain level of skill set, but it also it's a little bit of a longer road in terms of your identity development. And I think once I became a young adult, like went to college, and I really had to sit with my identity and I had to sit with what my purpose was and what my role was going to be at large. I kind of went back to what my early experiences were, and that became the anchoring source for how I decided to move forward. I think I was like 17 or 18 when I realized I really, really love working with young people, especially Cape Verdean youth, youth in my community, and youth of different cultures in general.
Mm-hmm.
I think as a kid, my dad definitely modeled the importance of um, having a role in the community outside of your immediate surrounding. And so I think family, of course, is very important. It's a cornerstone of basically everything that we do in our culture. But I think I also learned that family can also extend beyond um, your blood relatives or
That's right.
family friends. It also extends in your neighbors and people that are kin in that way, and the consequences of your actions in or inaction in those realms, it has impacts that ripple throughout like the community, and also it will affect your family as well. And so I think, in the early 2000s and still now struggle with a lot of community violence, a lot of issues, particularly in our community in Brockton. And I think seeing my dad just be like, okay, I'm not just gonna not do anything. There has to be something to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Not in just in the sense of a deficit, but also participating in all of our cultural activities, doing after school programs. I remember we used to volunteer at like the Cape Verdean Association, and I would like hang out with all the kids and we would record music and things like that. So I think it just showed me that there's just a lot to be done beyond my own individual pursuits, and that your role within your community is also an important part of just being a person, being a human.
Yeah, absolutely. And the importance of having that modeled for you early on and having you in those environments that cultivate that level of service, that sets you on a path of leadership through service, right? So that's beautiful. Thank you. Taylor, your story takes root in New Bedford, as you mentioned. And it was once because it's far in the types of industries, one could have considered it once as a desert of opportunity, right? But talk to us about how growing up in New Bedford shaped your drive as a leader today.
Yeah, of course. I like that you highlighted that, some may highlight New Bedford as a desert of opportunity, which is sometimes true. You know, growing up in a small town often sometimes means limited access to resources, whether it comes from, you know, healthcare or schools or just even, you know, access to a large city like Boston, Massachusetts. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, growing up in New Bedford, one thing I knew that was always important was in order for me to get exposed to maybe a different type of um, you know, neighborhood or lifestyle was to do well in school. And I think something we all highlighted on this call is family. Growing up, you know, Cape Verdean and Cambodian, and also with immigrant parents, something important that they instilled in me was education. So that was my number one focus growing up in New Bedford, just like doing well in school, my parents signing me up for extracurriculars, whether it was soccer, whether it's dance, just really always pushing your children to maybe do better than you did or have more resources than you, which led to me going to school in Boston at Suffolk. I started off in healthcare, believe it or not. I was a pre-med major because most of the successful people I seen, at least I had access to, I seen that they worked in healthcare, whether they were nurses or whether they were in pursuit of becoming doctors. And to me, that was the highlight of success. I was like, if I can work in healthcare, I can provide great, you know, living for myself, the ability to help others. I just always wanted to help the next generation and also, you know, my family and the next generation of Cape Verdeans and Cambodians. So I was like, healthcare is the way to go. When in one semester I realized this is not for me and there are other ways to help people, but it has to be in something that I'm passionate about. I took one pharmaceutical marketing and management course and I realized I really loved business. So I shortly, well, quickly transferred as soon as I could to Suffolk University, where I studied finance and real estate. And I realized that being able to study finance and business, being able to learn about that, I'm able to share how do you invest? How do you, you know, buy a home? How do you, like these things that maybe growing up in New Bedford we didn't learn right away. So I think that that's my purpose and making sure that I instill financial literacy to the next generation. And it all was like everything that I do is because of where I came from. You know, like New Bedford is always in the back of my mind and whatever I do, whenever I do it. And it's something that I like to share as well so that some people know where I come from and where I started.
Mm-hmm. Wow, thank you for sharing that. I think the pivot in the journey is a critical part of where you land, right? And so your story of going towards what's familiar to you and what's been part of your lived experience, and then realizing that just as much as you need to figure out what you want to do, it's just as important to figure out what you don't, right? So I think a lot of first generation listeners can definitely relate to that. Thank you so much. Let's chat with Mayra and see what your unique experience can offer us in your origins. You know, you spent your childhood in Cabo Verde, right, before moving here. What
Yes.
was it like arriving to the US, and how did your earlier experiences guide you toward the work you're doing now?
Hi, so I'll start with my earlier experiences. So I think this passion for healthcare started at just 7 years old when I cut my finger really badly. And
Mm,
then I remember my family rushing me to the ER, but I'm like, it's just a finger. I'm not like really worried about it, right? So then we get there and I remember me looking around and I see everyone like at all these sick kids in the waiting room, like crying, throwing up. And I remember the look in their mother's face, like they're losing hope because there's not enough doctors or any like healthcare provider to help them. And they let people in based on how like severe your case is. And then they let me in. And to me as a child, I was like, wait a minute, I'm okay. Like I'm not throwing up like the rest of these kids. So why are they not letting the other kids in, but they're letting me in? I still remember the look that I gave, like around the waiting room as I was entering, because I wanted to change that. I don't know, I didn't know how I was going to change that, but like that, the lack of resources that Cape Verde has, I saw all of that as a child. And then so my aunt worked as a healthcare provider in Cape Verde, and I remember my whole summer as a kid, like during summer break, I would go with her to the hospital and just like kind of like I felt like I belonged there. I would just walk around, touch everything, just see what's there, like what is she doing, how is she helping people, and I that kind of like stuck with me until I got here. I knew I wanted to help people. I knew it was in healthcare, so that stayed. I'm still not sure how until this age. I
Mhm.
don't know how, but I know it's through healthcare and helping people. So I moved to the US when I was 12, and I was always involved in like a science-based school where I'm taking like biology courses, chemistry, and everything. And I really like science. I loved science fair projects in my school. Um, I love being part of robotics. Like I like being creative and trying to figure out, like finding out what I want for myself. And then I graduated from high school and I applied to college and I did a degree in biology. That wasn't
Mhm.
easy at all. Going to a predominantly white institution, I got in and there's one full table of students that look like me. And mind you, they didn't even know what Cape Verde was. So it was like, it felt like I was new to that new world, but like I
Mhm.
had challenges. I had like, you're in a class with kids that had tutors all their life, that had guidance when they don't know a certain like something like um when they were struggling with the course, they knew how to get help and they got the help that they needed. But me, it was like I felt like if I go and ask for help, they would think that I don't know what I'm doing there. So it was kind of
Mhm.
like this negative thought in the back of my mind. But I could have given up, but I didn't. I knew that that's what I wanted to do since a kid. So I continued to ask the right people for help until I graduated with a much better grade than my first year. I was dealing with the law in my first year. My mom being sick, being first in my family, and having everyone like kind of applying pressure, but it wasn't like in a negative way. It was because they believed in me. They believed that I can do what I want. So
Mhm.
again, that's how it took me back to the first answer that I said, having a family. So I have a big family that it's like you have this big family that look up to you. So it's like you're scared to fail, but at the same time, they're supporting you. They're like, we're there for you. You can do whatever you want. So um I would say that, going back to your question, definitely the when I broke my finger, and like I don't know how to describe that feeling I felt inside of me of wanting to change that. Like I just knew that I need to be somewhere where I can fix that for Keyword, like provide more healthcare for people.
Mhm.
And as of now, I'm still navigating that to see where I'm going to end up.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's a path that's already been charted or one that you have to chart yourself,
Yeah.
right? It's going to be one or the other. Thank you. Well, I'm super curious about how y'all are managing as leaders in this dynamic of like living between two worlds. And it could mean slightly different um sort of like iterations of that for each of you based on your lived experiences. But I know having parents who did not assimilate to the Cape Verdean, to the American culture. The Cape Verdean culture was very strong in my upbringing, even though I was born here. Criollo was my first spoken language in the home, and then I learned English mostly in school. Um, how can y'all talk to me about that dynamic for you and how you're managing as you're in your sort of like early adult stages where you may have had an awakening about who you are and who you choose to be versus who the world's you live in tell you that you should be, and if there are any like Cape Verdean or culturally rooted values and beliefs that you lean into when especially when you're in times of uncertainty. So, because I'm talking about the Cape Verdean culture, but then there's the American culture, and then there's you. Talk to me about that dynamic, how you navigate, and anything that anchors you in the culture to help you seek clarity in those times, or in difficult times, I should say. And anyone who's feeling like you want to kick us off, because I know this is one that I'm throwing out there.
Can go.
Go ahead. Yes.
I can go. Okay, so here in college, there's this thing where, okay, if you're pre-med, you need to keep a 4.0 GPA. And then after you finish your pre-med, you take the MCAT and you go to M school. You go to medical school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's me. My college years didn't go well, right? So does that mean that I have to give up on my dream? I have to give up in pre-med? I can't be where I want to be because I have to follow this systemic norms, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So then I'm not a traditional student where it's like you go to college, you do your MCAT, and you go to school. I'm still navigating this. I'm I'm an immigrant, I'm Black, and I'm a queer woman. So my identity unfortunately makes it hard for me to go where I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Same in Cape Verde or here. There's still this negative thought with being a lesbian or being Black. They make it seem like those places are not meant for people like me. you know
Mm-hmm.
so then I'm here because I know that there's a lot of kids my age, a lot of like people that have this like kind of identity that want to be in places like that, and I want them to believe that it's possible, that you can make it.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to keep continuing believing in yourself, and then networking with people that believe in you. That's one thing that I always tell people. There's people out there that will make it hard for you. There's people out there that will also make it easy for you. You just have
Mm-hmm.
to know how to find these people and how to ask for help. So that's my intake in this.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that. Who wants to
Um,
build on that?
I was gonna respond to you, Maida, because you said a few things that resonated with me. I don't know if you're an eldest daughter, but it was giving eldest daughter for me, just also in terms of my own experience as well. That sense of like the expectation is on me and I need to make it, like I need to meet these markers. And for a certain amount of time, it is it is like a good motivator. It helps you build resilience when you're going through difficult times, when you know that you have all these people behind you. But I also think as you were talking about being in a very, white space, and that sense of like, it's like uh, cognitive dissonance. It's like when you need help, or when you feel like you're struggling a bit, it's feeling like you don't have the privilege of even asking for help. Whereas others, all they know is sort of that privilege. Like for them, they want every advantage that they can. And I'm even speaking from the perspective of somebody who's in school psychology, right? Like a lot of our training has to do with doing assessments on students and young people to determine whether they can get accommodations, or they can get um, certain kinds of like help or special education or things like that. And one of the biggest differences middle class white or privileged people, they tend to get those tests and get those accommodations to get every single advantage that they can get for their kid, whether it's for
Mm-hmm.
tests, entrance exams, or things like that. And because of the history that a lot of Black and Brown people have in the United States with assessments and in school, those you get those same kind of texts, but it impacts you negatively because now the expectation is set lower and you have this label of having a lower ability. And so I think as you were speaking, also with the struggles of trying to be in a particular space and being told implicitly or explicitly that you don't belong there, it's like, it's not even just the individuals, it's also systemically made so that the bar is always changing when it's a different identity that's in the space. And so there's always going to be these messaging that you don't belong there because it's always going to be different standards as different people get into the space. And so I think, that's just what was resonating with me as you were speaking. I think the challenge that comes up for us sometimes too is not even just getting into the space, because we know that we're capable. You come to a different country, you learn multiple languages, and you learn to adapt in multiple contexts. That is an extremely talented and skillful and intelligent person from the jump. That has you have a skill set that most Americans, monolingual Americans, do not have. Like they don't have that ability to adapt in that way. And so that from the jump was it for me. And then on top of that, we have to learn how do we use our skills and our ability or whatever credentials or privileges that we gain to actually help the communities that we're in. I think sometimes we get sort of seduced into being in a particular position that sometimes doesn't always help us to make the changes that we want. And it's often a huge fight to get to make the systematic difference that we want. And so I think that kind of came up for me a lot as I got into college. Because when I got to college, I was like, okay, I'm here. And I had to learn about really just how messed up things are. Because when you're a kid, you're taught meritocracy, things will work out if you work hard. And a lot of times they do. And in my case, they did. But learning the reality, it's like,
you learn his story and now you're learning our story.
Exactly. So yeah, those are just my thoughts on that as you were speaking.
But so I love that. Appreciate that. Tell us how you're navigating those. So you're between the American cultural expectations, the Cape Verdean cultural expectations. How does Elisa stand authentically and unapologetically herself? How does she know what that is?
I think that I take from my culture, my family, I take their lessons and their wisdom. I take from what I learned from American culture and history, including their history of resistance and building and other things that they have been able to accomplish in the US. But I also think sometimes you have to go a certain way that is not necessarily the what it seems logical. Like for example, when I learned the actual history of Amilcar Cabral, I don't think they teach his history all that well to Cape Verdeans in the US, actually. I learned it more when I was taking Black studies and Africana studies. But when I learned about what his philosophy was, what he fought for, and the type of ideas that he had, it actually wasn't that popular among Cape Verdeans. I think he was really going out he had like some pretty radical ideas that he had to kind of bring people with him. Like people were not there with him at the time. And so I think I realized that yes, we follow our families, we stay connected with our families because that's what gives us strength. And we learn from the environments that we're in, but sometimes everybody's just not going to be with you, and you just kind of you look inward to move forward versus looking externally. I think that's where I'm at this point.
Okay, the spirit of Cabral speaks. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for that. Taylor, how about you? What you got for us? How are you standing unapologetically as your authentic self?
I honestly resonate so much with everything that was just said. I think being unapologetically myself is something I share as being in the finance industry, or I'll take away finance. Being in college, I never had a Cape Verdean professor or a Cape Verdean classmate. So I was often always the only one, especially taking finance classes. Majority of the time, I would be the only woman on my team, or I especially only be the Cape Verdean on my team as well. And I think for me, like being able to be myself is being able to share like who I am and what my goals are and having a seat at the table. Um, and also just to like keep pushing, keep going, is sometimes really hard. Like
Mhm.
we have this stigma of like work hard and everything will work out, but I kind of disagree with that statement sometimes because it's like you can work hard, but if you're not on the right path that is meant for you and designated for you, you can be working your whole life for something that you never even reap the reward on. And everyone's
Mhm.
reward is different. There are a few pillars that are very important to me: health, family, giving back, and also being able to create opportunities, whether that's financial or even just like opportunities for other people.
Mhm.
And I think navigating that was really kind of hard to figure out. And I'm still figuring it out, right? Where I want to work, what I want to do, what is my purpose. And I think continue to work hard, but also ask for help and ask questions.
Mhm.
Um, I was struggling in some of my classes until one of my classmates told me, "Hey, have you ever been to office hours?" I'm like, "What? Like, why would I go to office hours? Like, why would I, like that helps?" And I realized there's a reason why there are office hours for students to come to ask questions to do better, which went on into my career of finding mentors. And also just because there's not, you know, some another Cape Verde, another person of color working in your direct team, you can seek those people out. You can seek people who inspire you, who, you see a little bit of piece of you in themselves. So I think for me to stay powerful is, finding people who inspire me and taking a piece of them and also sharing a piece of myself.
Mhm. Beautiful, beautiful. I love that. Talked about, you named a few things and you called it a pillars. I equate it to values. And so I think it's really powerful that you're clear about your few values. There's a lot of things that we obviously value. There are a lot of values and beliefs that are instilled in us, but it's important for us to interrogate and consciously accept particular values and beliefs, right? Because they shape our attitudes and they influence how we engage within and across difference. So I love that you shared that y'all have that. You mentioned the fact about asking for help and mentorship. Those are two other critical things. I always think about how Oprah has a mentor, right? So to your point, Elisa, you talked about how the more affluent families, they're looking for every advantage to give to their child. Whereas those of us, first generation, low income, we're sort of more conditioned to come from a deficit mindset. So we are feeling like if we ask for help, Maida, you mentioned that's wild, right? Coming from the outside, that you were immediately faced with that energy in the American culture that like if you ask, it's because you don't know, and that's deems like a negative connotation around it. So um, I wanted to ask that because I think it's something that at this, especially at this age, the y'all are college age, this is that time for those awakenings. And I love that all of y'all are on your awakened path, moving conscious and naming all of these things. But we also know that life isn't always smooth sailing, right? Even in the islands, the storms come. I mean, we be looking for them storms, those rainstorms, as often as we can get in the islands. But I want to move us into our next segment. We could talk a little bit about navigating uncertainty. And again, y'all, everyone's story is their story. And the way things transpire for them is for them, right? These conversations are meant to inspire and motivate y'all to dig in deeper and do more of your own self development because these ladies are clearly self aware, and I want them to share with us a little bit more about how they handle uncertain times or setbacks. Okay. Whether it's personal challenges or professional doubts, or even global events like the pandemic, what keeps you grounded and moving forward when things get tough? I'm going to go to Eliza first. You work in community initiatives where the only constant is change, right? Working in communities. How do you navigate uncertainty? Any personal strategies or mindsets that you can share with our audience?
Well, I'll divide it between personal uncertainty and then uncertainty in terms of my environment and what the world is dealing with right now. I would say I definitely dealt with a lot of uncertainty in my like mid-20s as like post undergrad and trying to figure out what my actual path was. And I think at that time, I would just take it little by little. I'm a Virgo, I'm a planner. So if I can't plan long term, yeah. If I can't see for sure the long term, I'll just plan the short term. Like I'll make a plan for, okay, what am I going to do at this step? Who am I going to talk to? What's like the list of people that could guide me, like the mentorship piece. We talked about that being important. I remember in undergrad I was pre-med for a little bit and that dream was killed. And it was fine. I ended up exactly where I needed to be, but also just something about the way that the pre-med route and the medical route is kind of filters out and like pushes out people that could be great medical providers. But aside from that, I had to figure out a path for myself. And I think it was sort of doing the short-term planning, but also leaning into family supports and just being open and investing in my day-to-day life, even if I wasn't sure about the long term. I would still like spend time with my friends and my family. I would still like travel if I could because you'll never get time back as you're getting older. In terms of just the world that we're living in, I'm glad that you brought up this question because I do think that we are living in extremely uncertain times, extremely unprecedented times. I think I would be a bit remiss if we weren't to at least mention like, the fact that immigrant communities are essentially under attack right now as it is. And there's a lot of changes that is happening throughout every sector in the US and possibly globally. I can even say just in my program
Definitely global.
this year, a lot of our research programs, a lot of research programs are being cut, a lot of funding for the type of work that I and my mentors and professors do are being cut. There's funding being cut in the healthcare sector. I read an article saying that I think hundreds of thousands of people will be affected in Massachusetts alone because Mass Health, it's like both state and federal funding. So if the federal funding gets taken away, it's like thousands upon thousands of people being affected. And even with Massachusetts, which happens to have the highest or one of the highest insured rates in the country. And so that affects us, right? Like if we're working in these sectors, we're trying to serve these communities, there's no way that it doesn't cause some anxiety and uncertainty. And I definitely feel it with my colleagues, my mentors. We're not feeling it as much in the clinical or community base yet, but I know a lot of artists and nonprofits that have lost their funding and they're not sure how they're gonna move forward. And so I think it's at a time where it's like, yeah, I don't know all the answers exactly. I don't know how things are gonna be in the next 5 to 10 years, but I know that historically, like we've been able to persist, like our communities have been able to keep on in a particular way, keep certain work moving forward, and leaning into the connections that we have with each other and our values and just our will to push for the world that we want to live in. And so I think that helps me keep on, just knowing that like our ancestors and people that came before us, they've dealt with similar things and also worse things. And that means that we have in our DNA the capability to withstand it and deal with it and keep on as well.
Just drop the mic right now. Just drop it. That was beautiful. I want to highlight a few things you said because I really want people to have these tips to take it on for themselves as they find themselves navigating uncertainty, getting overwhelmed with endless possibilities, new pathways to learn and start as beginners. It's a very scary time. But you talked about focusing, from what I gathered, focusing on what you can control, what's in your control, right? When you talk about if I can't do long-term planning, I'm going to do short-term planning. So you're being very intentional. You're being like consistently conscious. So you stay in that elevated state of awareness or alertness, which is important. And in doing so, it allows clarity to actually help navigate you because action brings clarity. So instead of letting that um, uncertainty move you into freeze because you're like, I can't plan that long term. You're going to go short term, which means you're taking action and then you're assessing and you're getting that clarity to take the next step. Like, powerful, beautiful. I love that. And then the other thing that you closed out with was the history. Like, if we had any doubt about whether or not we can do it, look at our past for the evidence of true triumph and victory. Because you're right, our ancestors have gone through so much worse. Not to downplay how bad it is for us right now. Oh my goodness, amazing. Thank you so much for that. Let's go to Taylor. Taylor, let's talk about how you're navigating being first gen in college. Now you're starting a high-powered career. What is your approach when you hit uncertainty or self-doubt?
You know, I feel like that's a loaded question because when I try to think of moments of where I face uncertainty and self-doubt, I think that happens to me every day or once a week where I question, am I doing the right thing? Is this okay? But I often look back at some of the setbacks that I've had in my life and how I overcame them. For instance, when I was in undergrad, COVID hit. And I think COVID was a huge point of uncertainty for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But for me personally, was my parents were like, we can't co-sign any loans, we can't help you out. Like, our business is not doing well. And I didn't know how I was going to pay for my college tuition. I had no idea. I just remember applying for so many scholarships, so much aid, picking up extra jobs, like working, so many hours per week of just trying to, finish that goal of I have to finish school. That was the one thing I worried about where I was like, I have to finish school. There's no way that I can't. And I did that. But then
Mm-hmm.
that moved on into my career where often we talked about this earlier of that saying of work hard, which I was working, well, you know, sometimes 80 to 100 hours per week. Like 100
Mm-hmm.
hours, like I'm the type of person where very type A, where my entire day is scheduled. I need something to do every single moment of the day. And if I don't, I feel like I'm like failing or doing something wrong. And it wasn't
Lacking
until
in
I
agreement.
had a huge health scare, which actually forced me to like take a rest, like take a rest. I was in the hospital for a few months where had to sit there and actually be like, I'm resting right now. Like, it's okay to rest. And I think in times of uncertainty and times of self doubt, it is so important to take time for yourself instead of trying to solve the problem right then and there, whether that's like taking care of your health or doing that workout class or reading that book or going on that walk and spending that time with family. I think we often sometimes think we have to have all the answers and doing something proactive that we think is productive sometimes sets us back. So staying grounded and really being intentional with doing things that make us happy, that can kind of lead us to where we want to go. So that's often what I do is, now that I experienced something that forced me to rest, I tell myself, okay, I'm going to take, some time to figure this out. And it's okay if I don't have the answer. I will eventually get it because I look at all my other setbacks, or my family setbacks, or my, grandfather coming all the way, this is on my Cambodian side, but all the way from Vietnam to the US, raising a family of 13. If my grandparents can do that, and on my Cape Verdean side, same for them, ancestors come here, be successful, have this line of heritage, I can overcome, that self-doubt because they did it too, and I have a piece of them in me.
That's right. Absolutely. Thank you for that mic drop too. Y'all supposed to wait until the end to be doing your mic drops. Okay. I'm gonna share what I got from your um what you just shared, just so that again, I want to make sure our audience has some takeaways so that they can put into practice themselves. But I heard you loud and clear that rest is part of the hustle. You have to rest or you will be put to rest, right? You literally experience that. So I love that. And I'm with you. I'm type A. Every hour is getting marked down. And guess what? I'm actually writing in rest or fun time as well, right? So that is so critical. Rest is it's revolutionary. It's part of self-preservation, right? Audre Lorde is one of the great scholars who remind us of that. Um, the other thing is, I felt like you gave me the opposite of Elisa when you talk about when I said the action brings clarity, but you talked about how actually seeking clarity to take action is important too, right? So it's kind of like the opposite of that because you're not sure what to do, and maybe you just need to pause, you need to slow down, you need to be still, you need to look within a little bit, right? Get some mindfulness in there so that you can seek some clarity to know what's that next step, and that's connected to that rest. So incredibly, incredibly important. And then I heard you saying that, hey, it's okay not to know a thing, right? So like you lead with cultural humility and you lean into that versus trying to have this pretend or facade of knowing it all and having all the right next answers. Um, and the last thing I got from you was just that reminder that this work is daily. It's not like you read a book or you hear a sermon and all of a sudden you've got no doubts, you're, positive thinker all the way around. When in fact, when we go to sleep, our inhibitions all let loose, right? And we're like in that fast mode as we're sleeping. When we wake up, our automatic minds are locked in. So you have to do that work intentionally every day to think with a growth mindset is what I heard from you.
And I want to add one thing when you were doing the takeaways, which is one thing I just want to share, is surround yourself with people who believe in you and see greater in you when you may not even see it yourself. You know, I lean into my friend group, into my family, into my co because
I'm losing your audio,
some
Taylor.
days we
Oh, I lost you, Taylor. I'm going to give you a second to come back.
having around us. Sorry, can you hear me now?
I can
Move
hear you.
forward.
Okay, there you are. There you are. There you are. So you were saying surround yourself with people.
How about now?
Yes. We
Yes,
lost you right when you talked about tapping into your friend group, and then I lost you.
yes, just like tapping into people who are constantly thinking of you for opportunities, constantly thinking of ways to make you better. I think it's nearly impossible in order to succeed in any, sector of your life without the right people around you. So that's one thing that I didn't miss and that I did want to share. So sorry for cutting you off, and also the audio
No,
going out.
no need to apologize. I really appreciate you bringing that in. And then I think about some people who may be in a time in their journey where they're like in the hallway, right? Of kind of changing groups of people and finding new tribes, and that and I don't know for you, Taylor, and anyone else, but I think that's the time to pull into faith, right? And that spiritual connection to self-belief, self-love, as you wait to make those connections, if it's not readily available to you. Because I just want to name that, because not everyone has, in some times of some stages of their life, those types of people that you're speaking of, because it is very powerful to have that. Also, people who can tell you about yourself too, right? Tell you the truth about yourself. I appreciate that. All right, Maida, we all want to hear from you because you made a huge life change crossing the oceans, if you would. So I imagine you've become something of an expert, right, in dealing with uncertainty. What's your secret when facing the unknown?
I'm also a Virgo, just like Eliza. Um, I learned how to take the negative thoughts out of my head. I'm an overthinker. That can go bad, that can go good sometimes. I think a lot. I'm always like drawing different scenarios in my head of like, okay, if I do this, this is what will happen, and then I can do this. If I don't do this, this won't happen. So I still kind of like use that in a more healthier way, which is trying to decide if I'm applying to PA school, med school, or nursing. I don't know yet. So what I do is I sit down and I write down the pros and cons for one or the other. I talk about my reasons. Like my best friend told me that the answer to what we don't know is to continue to ask questions. So
That's right.
I continue to ask myself the what, when, and how. Why? Why do you want to be a doctor? Why do you want to be a doctor? Again, continue to ask until I get to the root cause of the real reason why. Or, sometimes when before getting to college, I was 100% med school. And then I got to college and I had people telling me that I don't belong there. And
Hmm.
then right now, I'm kind of trying to discover, okay, did you always wanted to be a doctor and you got discouraged by these people? So then how, like, what would you do if they didn't tell you these negative things? So I'm always like kind of like programming myself and like trying to decide what I want to do and discover. And
Hmm.
another thing that I've learned is follow your heart and that gut
Hmm.
feeling. That's what I tell people all the time. You know what you want to, deep, 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 deep down inside of you, you know exactly what you want and how to get there. So I would always ask people, and whenever I see a nurse or PA or doctor, would ask them, trying to get through like their personal statement, like, oh, why did you apply to nursing school? So that I could see if that's a good reason for me to go to. And I
Hmm.
stopped doing that because
Hmm.
everyone is different. Everyone has their own reasons and motives to, applying to certain things. And then even now, what Taylor was saying about like, people think that you can only help people through healthcare, through being a doctor or nursing or PA. I'm also discovering that it's like, what if you explore these other areas? Will you be happy? So it's like right now they say that your 20s is the hardest age ever, and I'm definitely experiencing that because I don't know like which path to take, and like I'm loving discovering everything. I love that I'm like uncertain about life, and I'm doing what I can control based on what Miss Cabral said. What I
Hmm.
can do right now is what I can control, which is by shadowing different doctors, PAs, and nursing,
That's right.
exploring different careers, see what I can do if I, you know, their day to day, like observing them, asking as much questions as I could. That's what I can do right now. Take classes for my own knowledge, and then I have faith that one day it will just come. It'll just
Hmm.
hit me. It doesn't matter if I apply to a school and I go and I don't like it. That's okay. I'll apply again to a different school. That's fine. These are kind of the reasons I've been like sticking myself to and like planning my life that way by discovering myself, by meeting people. I'm literally reaching out to all these healthcare providers. Like, can I talk to you? Can we do this? Can we do that? And
Mm-hmm.
the only thing that I'm really holding on to is my faith and believing in myself and knowing that, okay, since a child, this is what you saw, this is what you wanted. So then what can you do to get there? It will be hard. It will be a lot of rocks throughout the way. And it's like sometimes I think that, I believe in God, and I think that He puts certain things in our way to make it hard so that you're sure that's what you want to do. Because
Mm-hmm.
you have to think about it. Once you're there, that's your life. So
Mm-hmm.
then you have to be really sure about the things that you want to do. And I always tell people, use your heart. If I, when I train the PCAs at my job, when I train them, I tell them, does your heart tell you that you want to help people? Because if you don't have that in your heart, don't do this just because, for the money or because you
Mm-hmm.
think it's something cool. You have to have the heart for it because this is your life. This is your job. So why are you here doing something you don't love? You know? So these
Maida, save something for the manifesto, Maida. Oh my goodness. This is amazing. Let me tell you what I got out of it for you from your chat right now.
okay.
The biggest one, which I think is the most critical to doing anything in life, is know your why. I heard that loud and clear from you from the beginning. Like, know your why, because when times do get tough, times are uncertain, untelling, your why is going to keep you centered, it's going to keep you motivated, it's going to keep you driven. So, knowing your why in anything is so important. Um, the other piece is that I say this to my students all the time about it's not about the having the answers, it's about asking more questions. Right? So there's a quote, his is Eugene, I'm gonna forget his last name, but he says it is not the answer that enlightens, but the question. So the more questions you have, actually, I think it's an indicator of how smart you really are. Um, this self-interrogation piece that you discussed, I think is critical and important. Heart and intuition. You highlighted heart, following your heart and the intuition. So that's the knowing and the feeling, like the vibrations and the energy that we carry. That's what that speaks to for me. This call to not compare. Stop the comparison. Stop comparing yourself to other people because, like you said, this is your life. That's beautiful. Do not limit yourself. Um, so the last piece that you mentioned was the faith and self-belief, because I think that taps into what I was thinking about the people who are in the hallway feeling like they're on that lone path. That is, you have your faith and belief in yourself. It doesn't matter anyone else who believes in you or not. Because there's some people who even their parents who are so well intentioned do not have belief that they can do something, but they believed in themselves and proved their parents wrong in essence, right? So I think that's deep and critical. And as you're talking about figuring this out in your 20s, I love that you're open and analytical to what's coming if you go one way or the other. But I would say, don't limit yourself to a pathway that exists. Don't limit yourself to any career path that anybody else has done, because there's some I guess you'd call them entrepreneurs, but business owners out there that have titles and job functions that don't exist in any college curriculum, you know? So I look forward, Maria, to see what your chart actually looks like when you land where you want to land, you know? Um, all for sharing these great takeaways because y'all named it. We are currently in uncertain times. So having these reminders is so critical. Cannot thank y'all enough. Let's have some fun now. Let me ask, not that this hasn't been fun, because this has been so fun hearing all of y'all's thoughts. I want to get us into our rapid fire questions. Are y'all ready? All right, so we'll do a popcorn style. Whoever's ready to go, and then if you feel like you want to add to it, jump in. But who wants to kick us off and letting us know what is your favorite Cape Verdean dish that gives you instant nostalgia? What is your go-to meal dish from the Cape Verde Islands?
I can go first.
Yes.
I think, being in, I love that, we're here or in a different part of the world outside of Cape Verde, but that the cooking still stays around. I really love that. Like Cesaria's in Dorchester, Alvis in Brockton, New
Yeah.
Bedford, they have that whole, Cape Verdean Portuguese market there. I really, really love that about us Cape Verdeans. And I'm very blessed that I have mom and grandmothers that knows how to make cachupa exactly how I am back home.
Is
So,
that your dish?
it's like I can't really, it's like I have nostalgia here when I'm eating
Yeah.
because like I never lost that. I'm still eating Cape food almost every day, and I'm really blessed for that. And I think one thing that I eat here that I'm like, oh my God, if this was in Cape Verde, it would be so like amazing. It's like rice with grilled tuna and
Mm.
vegetables. Oh my God. Like, I don't know how they make it in Cape Verde, but
It's
like,
because we
it's
can
because of
cook.
the fish there is different in here. That's
That
what it
and
is.
the vegetables.
That's what it is. And the vegetables. But
That's
like,
exactly what it
it,
is.
like, when I eat cachupa here, I can still taste it similar to Cape Verde. But
Yeah.
when I eat that tuna here, it's not the same as when I'm back home. Oh my God. So yeah, that's
Absolutely not. I think we could
the
all agree
fish.
with that. But so if it is cachupa, is it refogado or you like it fresh?
Okay, all right, here we go. The cachupa afogado with linguiça.
Okay.
It's different back home because the linguiça there is different than here. So I guess those two.
And
Linguiça.
there's some loss in technique from Cabo Verde to Marca when we refogar. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna lie, because not everybody's like using onions and all this, you know what I mean, to
yeah,
refogar.
yeah. So yeah, I
Gotta know how to refogar cachupa, people. All right.
those are the foods that like when I'm back home, I'm eating cachupa afogado with linguiça every breakfast, and I'm eating fish as much as I can because it's not the same here.
It's fresh. That's right. Thank you. Anyone else want to share your favorite dish?
I can go. It's gonna be a tie between Resoish and bacalhau. Those are
Oh,
probably top favorite foods and top Cape Verdean foods for sure.
love it. Love it. Both in the fish area. Taylor, how about you?
I would say cachupa, and I believe on our intro call we had a good laugh about this on how I called it manchu.
Oh, yes.
And so for me, I always say manchu. I now corrected myself to cachupa. There's actually a restaurant in New Bedford, Mass, called Lighthouse in the South End, and they actually have like a small Cape Verdean menu. Actually, I guess it wouldn't be small. It's a pretty good menu, but they had some like rice and this like flavored shrimp that was like in sauce that it's so good. So if you guys ever are in New Bedford, it's delicious. Highly recommend. But definitely cachupa would be like my go-to Cape Verdean food when I'm craving seaweed food.
Love it. Love it. Thank y'all for sharing. How about one word that best describes your leadership style? Just give me the one word.
I would say open, like open leadership, because
Mhm.
I feel like to pick one word on how you lead is sometimes makes it very concise. So as a leader, I feel like depending on who you're working with, your leadership style may change. So I think I'm open to the people that I'm working with and
Mhm.
how they want to be led, what inspires them, because in order to be a leader, it's not just about me. It's about what are people receiving from this. So I go into any leadership opportunity open to change, open to being mindful, being intentional. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but I think just staying
Absolutely.
open to, different outcomes and different opportunities.
Yeah, and inputs too,
Yes.
because often that openness for you to hear from others is powerful.
Yes.
Thank you for that. It is a challenge. One word that describes your leadership. What might that be for y'all?
I would say maybe intuition.
Mm,
I think there are some maybe hard skills, soft skills, like Taylor said, being open to people's needs and their style, maybe how they want to be led. But I think maybe my style is just so, because sometimes people aren't always able to communicate exactly what their needs are in the way that they want to communicate. So I think having a little bit of intuition to connect and create some opportunities, even for people to express themselves or share what the needs are. Because I feel like at the core of any kind of group work, it always comes down, I think, to communication, communication styles. People really, sometimes you really vibe with each other and you don't have to communicate that much. Sometimes you really have to work hard to communicate properly with people. And so I think I kind of let my intuition and just kind of being authentic guide me in those uncertain areas.
thank you. Thank you. Maria, you wanna?
That's a hard question. Oh my God. Because like I think what both Taylor and Eliza said, those are, you know, words that I would also use to describe leadership or what it means to me, but also like I think observing.
Mm,
Really I really like to read the room, see who's there and how I kind of like adjust who I am based on the people around the room. And I like to say that I'm good at reading people. And whenever like we're having conversations and things like that, I know how to like read someone based on the things that they're saying or their body language. That I use that every day at work. When I'm coming in a patient's room, I take some time to observe and read their body language to see how I can communicate with them. That's
mm.
very important. So yeah, I would say observation is my word for leadership here.
Thank you. Thank you for all these words. I'll add vulnerability. It's just one that we don't often see many leaders leading with, but leading with vulnerability and understanding the risk that may come with leading with vulnerability and how you manage that.
Yeah.
Um, but thank y'all. I really appreciate all the answers and all the gems y'all have dropped with us today. Because it's hard to get all the right questions. I always like to end with giving you my guests the moment to offer some final remarks. Anything you was hoping to share with the audience today when you thought about discussing today's topic that you didn't get to share. This is your time to do it. And if there's a mantra or a saying in Criollo and the Cape Verdean culture that you live by that you want to share, you can drop that in. But if not, definitely any final messages that you have for our audience about leading um, for tomorrow, leading for the future.
I can go first
Mhm.
if it's okay.
Definitely.
When we started this project with you, Dr. Barros, I took some time to reflect a lot about our ancestors and us today. I was like, okay, back in the days, colonization, right? They came in, they took resources, and they left. So now this is what decolonization is going to look like. We're
Mm,
going back to our community and we're sharing the knowledge that we learned here, right? It will be like a mutualistic relationship
mm,
between us that left Cape Verde and came here to learn how to be like, not to learn, but to kind of like expand, because we always had it in us, right? To expand this leadership that we have. Like, we have these group like Cape Verdean American Association, we like medical, these different medical society groups that like are literally gathering people from all over the world. Doesn't have to be just Cape Verdeans, and going back to like perform surgeries to help in the community, you know? So
Yeah.
that's decolonization. We're not taking away nothing, we're coming together. And that's something that I wanted to share here. Leaders of tomorrow, leaders of today, that's what it's going to look like as my vision. We're sharing each other's knowledge, we're helping our community, and that's way different than what was happening back in the days. Our ancestors were there to share, what they know, and then kind of like got used and replenished from our community. But now we're bringing that back
Amen.
together. That's what I would say. And if you guys could listen to this song by Ellie Almeida called Unta Consegui, that song really, really, it's like just her voice. It's like, it's so powerful, and it talks about um, pushing forward and not giving up, no matter like how all these barriers that come our way. Like trust in
Definitely.
yourself, follow your heart, engage in communities where you know that will help you, and take your time and don't compare yourself. You have your own history. That's
Yeah.
advice for myself too.
Amen. Amen. What's the name of that song again, and by who?
Do you want me to put it in the chat? It's Nta Consegui by,
The Consigi. I just like to be repetitive for our
yeah,
audience who knows where they're listening to us and they're moving around. I want them to hear that again so they can check that track.
yeah, and the irony, that's the song that got her where she is right now. It
Mm-hmm.
was through that song that she became really famous, and people started to like, you know, really use that song for themselves too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Powerful.
it's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank
Of
you for sharing that.
course,
Would
thank
like
you.
to go next as we close out.
I
Yeah,
think I, oh,
sorry, go ahead, Taylor.
you can go.
I'll just say quickly, similar to what you were saying, Maida, I was gonna say Sankofa. It's not a Cape Verdean term, but I guess it's
Mm-hmm.
a pretty Pan-African term. Like we
Rooted.
need to
Yeah.
look backward in order to move forward. And I think that
Mm.
definitely shapes pretty much everything that I do, my personal life and community work, education, etc. So very much aligned with you on that, Maida.
Thank you.
I don't have one word, but just wrapping up here, I just want to share like the purpose of this podcast. I hope everyone walks away of knowing
Mm-hmm.
that, tomorrow Cape Verdean leaders won't just have a seat at the table, we'll shape it, build new ones, and open space for others to rise with us. We come from islands forged by resilience, right? Migration and endurance. And we will carry that strength into any room we enter, whether that is business, healthcare, hospitality. And we'll carry that strength in every choice that we make, every path that we open, and just stay true to yourself and trust your heart, trust your intuition. And, the reason why, we do podcasts like this or we're together is to make sure that we're always sharing the knowledge that we have. And I look forward to a better tomorrow for just our leaders and our community. And I'm excited to see what it holds next.
Thank you. Thank you all. What a beautiful way to end with all of your messages. What an amazing episode this has been. I want to thank again our phenomenal women apoderosas with us today. Eliza Cabral, Taylor Montero, and Mayra Gomes Spencer. Y'all are truly shining examples of leaders of tomorrow. Thank you for sharing your journeys and your joy with us. Until next time, y'all, stay proud, stay resilient, and keep shining. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank y'all so much. Ciao.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Ciao,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Well,